Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before I start, I would just like to acknowledge that I'm speaking today from the land of the Bedegal people and pay my respects to elders past and present. My name is Minerva Invold. I'm Judith Neilson Postdoctoral Fellow in Contemporary Art at the University of New South Wales, Sydney. Welcome to the Talks in Chinese Humanities series, which is co-presented by the Australian Society for Asian Humanities, the China Studies Centre and the Discipline of Chinese Studies at the University of Sydney, and the UNSW Faculty of Arts, Design and Architecture's Judith Neilson Chair of Contemporary Art. So I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Yunjie Hu. So Dr. Hu graduated from the Department of Chinese Studies at the University of Sydney last year. Her research interests include, but are not limited to, theatre history, cultural history, and the social history of China. She recently had her article, Theatre as Business, a study of Shanxi merchants' sponsorship of theatrical performances in Qing, China, published in Asia Theatre Journal. And I'll post the DOI for that article for those of you who are interested. Before I hand over to Dr. Hu, just to let you know how we'll be running things today. Dr. Hu will speak first, and then there'll be time at the end for questions. You can put your questions both throughout the talk and during the Q&A session into the Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. So please, we do love questions from the audience. So yes, put your questions in the Q&A box throughout the talk and during the Q&A. All right, so I'll now hand over to Dr. Hu. Thank you.
Thank you, Minerva. And let me share my screen. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yunjie, or you can just call me Lisa. The topic that I am going to discuss today is Theatre as Business, a study of the triangular relations among Shanxi merchants' business, their theatre sponsorship, and social status in late imperial China. This topic is based on some chapters of my PhD thesis. In 2006, a 45-episode Chinese TV series called Qiao's Grand Courtyard debuted on CCTV1, the primary channel of CCTV. CCTV is the national flagship television network in China. This TV series was funded by CCTV, and it is directed by Hu Mei, one of the best film directors in China. The lead actresses and actors include, but are not limited to, Chen Jianbin, Li Dahong, Jiang Qingjin, and Ma Yili, who were and still are the most among the most best actors and actresses in China. This TV series is a biographical story about Qiao Zhiyong, one of the most well-known and successful merchants from central Shanxi province in the Qing dynasty. This TV series won many prizes. Even today, it is still viewed and praised by audiences. The Qiao family's legacy gained widespread recognition in contemporary times following the airing of the TV series. Part of the TV series was shot in the Qiao family's compound, or Qiaojia Dayuan. It is the private mansion of the Qiao family in the Qixian County of central Shanxi. The construction of the private mansion started in 1756. It has now been converted into a museum of traditional Chinese folk residencies. The Qiao family's private mansion has also become a popular tourist attraction in the past few decades because a famous movie called Raise the Red Lantern, directed by Zhang Yimou, was filmed there. The picture on the left-hand side of the slides shows the new main entrance of the museum, which was built in imitation of the original architectural structure of the Qiao family's compound. This private mansion covers an area of more than 10,000 square meters and contains 26 courtyards. The picture on the left-hand side shows the yard that Qiao Zhiyong used to live in. His living room, bedroom, and study are located in the two-story central building, flanked by the bedrooms of his two sons. We know that China has historically been an agricultural society. Han Fei, a prominent legalist philosopher during the pre-Qing period, regarded commerce as secondary to farming and even viewed traders and craftsmen as profit-driven vermin detrimental to the state. Under the reign of the Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, anti-commerce policy was systemized. From then on, lending weight to agriculture and restraining commerce, 重农抑商, became a tradition, which exerted an overwhelming impact on Chinese people's perception of trade and the social standing of merchants for over 2,000 years. So if this is the case, then why are we so interested in merchants and their lives? Why do merchants from Shanxi attract our attention? How did merchants become so powerful that they are able to build palatial private mansions? Why has the legacy of merchants become something that we admire? In today's talk, I will introduce to you the rise of Shanxi merchants and their business in late imperial China, their theater sponsorship, and the underlying reason for their theater sponsorship, which was their pursuit of higher social status. And hopefully, by the end of the talk, you will have the answers to all these questions. Shanxi Merchant Group, or Jinshang, was the pioneer in large-scale regional trade. They appeared in the early Ming Dynasty because of the trade in salt and grain at northern frontier regions. With the accumulate of their fortune from the early Ming Dynasty onwards, their business expanded to many other industries, such as tea, horses, groceries, tobacco, dyestuff, herbal medicines, and so on and so forth. The Qing Dynasty witnessed the peak of Shanxi merchants' business. Notably, in 1823, merchants from central Shanxi established the draft bank industry, which was the earliest banking industry in China. Gradually, Shanxi merchants topped all the other merchant groups and dominated the market towns in northern China. The late imperial era saw the most dramatic change in the traditional Chinese social hierarchy, especially the social mobility between wealthy merchants and literati. The traditional social stratification is referred to as 市民. Literati scholars stood at the top, followed by farmer and craftsman. Merchants was ranked at the bottom. But in the late imperial time, this social stratification was altered following the development of commerce. Some researchers in social history of China believe that merchants actually had surpassed farmer and craftsmen to become the second highest social echelon. During the late imperial era, the social distinction between rich merchants and literati elites was blurred. Many literati abandoned the highly valued study of Confucian classics and started to engage in trade. Merchants could realize their upward social mobility through various ways. Powerful merchant groups relied on the imperial government's protection, engaged in the trade of strictly government-controlled goods, such as tea and salt, and established a close connection with the ruling house. In this way, they not only obtained economic prerogative, but also praise, feasts, and gifts from the ruling class, which were all symbols of prestige and honor. They could also purchase honorific titles, academic degrees, and government posts for a certain amount of money. According to Chinese American historian He Bingdi, up to the outbreak of the Taiping Rebellion in 1851, the civil service examination had always been the primary channel for upward social mobility. But after the outbreak of the Taiping Rebellion, money overshadowed higher academic degrees as the determinant of social status. Wealthy Shanxi merchants were enthusiastic about purchasing honorific titles and sinecures. They not only purchased these for themselves, but also for their wives, daughters, sons, and even deceased parents. They also established a very close relationship with the ruling class. Nearly all the members of the ruling class relied on particular Shanxi merchants' draft banks to hide their dirty money obtained via corruption. Shanxi merchants transferred military provisions for armies, managed the deposits for officials and government departments. They transferred public funds, loaned money to imperial government to support public projects such as water projects, and remitted provincial tax revenues to Beijing for the imperial house. With all the money collected from officials and governments, Shanxi merchants were able to broaden their portfolio, thus accelerating the expansion of their banking industry. Here I have two interesting pictures to share with you. The one on the left-hand side is a spirit screen close to the main entrance of the Qiao family's compound. You may have heard of the name of Zuo Zongtang, a prominent minister in the late Qing dynasty. When he was young, he had once been sponsored by the Qiao family. When he was successfully appointed the Grand Minister of the state, he visited the Qiao family's compound to see Qiao Zhiyong and wrote an antithetical couplet. This antithetical couplet is now inscribed on the spirit screen. When tour guides and local residents introduced it to tourists from far and wide, their tones and demeanor always convey a sense of pride. The pictures on the right-hand side show the stage in the backyard of the headquarters of the Xie Draft Bank in Pingyao County of central Shanxi. When I visited this draft bank, I didn't realize that it was a stage because it is apparently the entrance to the backyard of the draft bank, and the platform was quite small. There is a huge basement in the backyard of this draft bank. Tourists flocked to the backyard to see the basement, but no one paid any attention to the stage. When I checked my map, I saw that there was indeed a stage inside this backyard. So I found some staff members of the museum and consulted them. And they pointed to the small platform and said, "Here, can you see it? That is the stage." When the Empress Dowager Cixi came to visit Xie Tongqing, theatrical performances were staged here to entertain her. Same as the tour guide in the Qiao family's compound, the staff members at the Xie Tongqing were also very proud. I tried to find some written records of Cixi's visit to Xie Tongqing Draft Bank, but unfortunately, I haven't yet found any so far. But it is true that during the Boxer Uprising, which ran from 1899 to 1901, when Cixi and Emperor Guangxu escaped to Xi'an and stopped in central Shanxi, it was Shanxi merchants who provided them with financial support and accommodations. But it doesn't really matter under what circumstances Cixi and Guangxu visited Xie Tongqing, or what their mood was. As long as the stage exists and the story continues to circulate, the local people's pride in their ancestors' prestige won't vanish. They will remember them, and the history will remember them. Now we have come to theatrical performance. Let's have a look at the role that theatre played in Shanxi merchants' glorious past. We have discussed that Shanxi merchants enhanced their social status via purchasing titles and posts and via their business relationship with the ruling class. But this purchased social status was not secured, and the traditional views towards merchants was difficult to be erased. So they had to find ways to maintain this newly acquired social standing. Sponsoring and consuming theatrical performances helped Shanxi merchants to achieve their goal. As we shall see, theatrical performance was a bridge between Shanxi merchants and the literati elites. It helped to cement their valuable business relationship, therefore ensuring Shanxi merchants' wealth and prestige. Lavish consumption of theatrical performances was an ostentatious manifestation of Shanxi merchants' wealth, which reinforced Shanxi merchants' status and their influence in local community. Towards the end of the Qing dynasty, people from all social echelons, including emperors and empresses, peddlers and couvées, all obsessed with their theatrical performances. This fashion provided a stimulating environment for theatrical performance to blossom and was the prerequisite for Shanxi merchants to resort into theater to maintain their relationship with the ruling class. Shanxi merchants often invited literary officials to attend banquets with performances. Some of the venues that they usually visited included Shanxi merchant guild halls and young male performers' private mansions. The architectural design, environment, and the seats arrangements of both venues reflected the weakened boundary between Shanxi merchants and their ruling class stakeholders. Shanxi merchants built more than 500 guild halls throughout the country, mainly in the Qing dynasty, to provide a place where merchants kept stock and a venue for gatherings and offering sacrifices to patron gods. Powerful Shanxi merchants usually established one or more stages inside their guild halls. Shanxi merchant guild halls were famous for their sheer grandeur, large area, exquisite wooden and stone carvings, and magnificent building complexes. And the stage inside a guild hall is usually the most magnificent part of the building complex. In the Mongolia, where sojourning merchants gathered, local gods, the nobility, gentry, officials, merchant leaders, and guild leaders always gathered in Shanxi merchant guild halls for amateur performances. In some guild halls elsewhere, separate seating areas were provided for distinguished guests. One of the examples is the Pingyang Guild Hall located at Qianmen area, a lively commercial district in Beijing. This guild hall theater covers an area of around 1,000 square meters, and it can house hundreds of spectators. It is the biggest and oldest guild hall theater in Beijing. The stage inside the guild hall is believed to have been built for Emperor Dowager Cixi to appreciate famous Banzi performer Guo Baochen's performances. Banzi is the favorite drama style of Shanxi merchants, and we will come back to this later. Having a tasseled canopy, the opera watchtower to the front of the stage was likely to be exclusively the domain of leaders of guild and the important audiences such as noblemen and literati officials. The picture on the top shows the main entrance of the Pingyang Guild Hall nowadays. When I traveled to Beijing in 2017, I didn't have any opportunity to have a look at the inside of this Guildhall Theatre. The Guildhall Theatre has been converted to a theatre for other drama styles. And because there was no performance on that day, I was told that I could not even enter the main gate to have a look at the theatre. The picture on the bottom is a very old photo of the Guildhall Theatre before its renovation. So as you can see, it doesn't really reveal much about what the theatre actually looked like. But I still would like to show you how a Guildhall Theatre can be alike. So I put this photo here. It is the Guildhall Theatre inside the Huguang Guildhall in Beijing, which was established by literati rather than merchants. I was amazed when I saw this Guildhall Theatre, and I believe that the renovated Pingyang Guildhall must also be as magnificent as this one. Another place where Shanxi merchants entertained a ruling class was the young male performers' private residencies in Beijing area. In the Qing dynasty, young male performers who played female roles and young male roles were commonly trained to become male prostitutes. Their private residencies was also known as 下处, literally meaning the lowly place. Although theatre performer was a lowly occupation, the atmosphere at 下处 and the services provided there allowed the clients gain prestige because they were made to feel like very important individuals. The anthology of trivial matters in the Qing Bai Lei Chao offers an elaborate description of the environment in the place. The gate of Xiachu was hung with a signboard bearing the name of so-and-so parlor and with a lantern. When guests entered the residence through the gate, doormen would stand up and wait on them. When the guests asked them for something, they kept their hands at their sides and spoke in a low voice in a very cautious manner. When they led the guests into the residence, flowers, trees, ponds, and artificial hills in the courtyard, as well as cooking vessels, wine vessels, calligraphies, and paintings inside the rooms, all finely displayed. When the guests went out of the rooms, then they could sit beside a row of spotted bamboo, brew some nice tea, and have a nice chat. Servants outside the door stood quietly and solemnly, surrounding the place. No whisper, no coughing. People who came to this place could keep away from all their worldly concerns. A visit to Xiachu and the young male performers' company were rather costly. So the frequent customers of Xiachu were mainly wealthy people, such as affluent officials and magnates. Sojourning Shanxi merchants in Beijing not only frequented Xiachu themselves, but also entertained the ruling class there. The fashion for having an intimate relationship with young male performers began in the mid-Ming dynasty. From the late Ming to the mid-Qing dynasty, the literatis' fascination with young male performers was a means of displaying their sophistication, good taste, refinement, status, wealth, and aesthetic predisposition. Young male performers were regarded as objects of sublime beauty. But in the mid to the late Qing dynasty, fraternization with young male performers was commercialized, meaning that anyone who had money could find a boy. During this period of time, visiting young male performers' residences became a manifestation of economic power, a lavish lifestyle, and social status, because, as discussed earlier, money overshadowed academic degrees as the determinant of social status. Let's move on to Shanxi merchants' lavish consumption of theatrical performances in their hometown. Wealthy Shanxi merchants followed a general pattern of lifestyle and consumption of theatrical performances. That is, accumulating fortune, establishing mansions with theater stages, hiring well-trained performers, and purchasing luxurious props and costumes, and then showing off their fortune via their family troupe and their engagement in theatrical performances. We have already had some ideas about the famous Qiao family in Qixian County of central Shanxi. Now let's have a look at the famous Li family in the Pingyao County of central Shanxi and Cao family in Taigu of central Shanxi. In 1823, Li Daquan set up Rishengchang, the very first draft bank in China. Under the leadership of Li Zhenshi, a son of Li Daquan, the Li family reached its peak very soon. None of the members of the family obtained academic degrees via the civil service examination, 科举, but most of them purchased government posts and honorific titles. In the late Daoguang period, Li family started the establishment of their private mansion, which was known as the Li family's fort, which covered 23,000 square meters. Around the Tongzhi period, Li Zhenshi established a stage inside his private mansion and provided financial support to his nephew in Guanglu to set up a family bonzi troupe named the Garden of Wishing for Good Harvest. A Garden of Wishing for Good Harvest was believed to be the most outstanding bonzi troupe in Pingyao at the time. Lin Guanglu spent a large sum of money on props and costumes and hired famous painters to paint backdrops for the troupe. It was rather expensive to create backdrops at Yin's time. And in Chinese theater, the use of backdrops were usually minimized, so his practice was extraordinary and innovative. His stage sets and props were also unusual. For instance, the performers could light a fire inside an artificial pagoda on the stage. Yin Guanglu also hired some highly skilled performers at a very high salary. Because of its extravagant props, costumes, and stage sets, the troupe was also called in jest the troupe of 100,000 strings, 10,000 班, or the dressing and wrapping up troupe, 装裹班. The troupe performed not only in Fenzhou and Taiyuan prefectures in central Shanxi, but in market towns in modern Hebei province and Beijing. Lin Guanglu even hired bodyguards to protect the troupe on the way. In the places outside Shanxi, the troupe also achieved great fame. The Cao family was also known for their investment in theatrical performances. The ancestors of the family was originally farmers. Cao Sanxi, the 14th generation grandson of the founding ancestor, started selling tofu and stew pans. In the early 19th century, the Cao family was divided into 12 branches. The most influential and wealthiest one was called the Hall of Triple Plenty, 三多堂, meaning the family of plenty of sons, plenty of good fortune, and long life. After the Daoguang period, the Cao family had over 2,000 firms, a total capital of 6 million taels of silver, and over 21,000 employees throughout the country. Their firms could be found in Paris, Moscow, London, Tokyo, and so on. With the massive accumulation of wealth, the family developed considerable interest in obtaining official titles and academic degrees to enhance the social status of the family members. The Cao family members' genealogy, displayed in the mention of the Hall of the Triple Plenty, shows that nearly all the male family members from Shanxi to later generations possessed titles and degrees, quite a few of which were honorific titles. Same as the Li family, the Cao family members also enjoyed an extravagant lifestyle with an excessive consumption of theatrical performances. But what made the Cao family's engagement in theatrical performance different from that of all the other merchant families in central Shanxi in the late Qing dynasty was the annual theatrical festival held by the Hall of Triple Plenty. The theatrical festival was a privately organized high-level theatrical performance event that lasted for a month in late winter every year. The festival consisted of two parts. One was private shows performed in the yard where all the participants lived. The other was the public shows on a separate stage where local residents were welcome to enjoy. The shows began at 5 o'clock every afternoon and ended at 10 at night. On the following day, people usually discussed the shows and appraised the performers' skills. Performers were split into different groups based on the role that they played and the plays that they would like to perform. For instance, on day one, all the performers who played the young male role performed play X. And on day two, all of these performers would perform play Y instead. Every year, over 100 people attended the festival. The participants included experienced and reputable performers, young performers, amateur performers, poor scholars, and members of other merchant families in central Shanxi who are also theater lovers. The grand banquets were prepared for the participants during lunchtime. They were also served snacks every morning and evening. During this 1 month event, the Cao family provided them with as many free meals, accommodations, tobacco, and other necessities as they wanted. The Cao family members also lavished gifts, such as good sedan pulled by fine horses on famous performers. The Li families and Cao family story showed that their consumption and engagement in theater was in fact a form of conspicuous consumption, which manifested the family members' wealth and fame. During household events, this kind of lavish consumption was conspicuous to guests. When the merchant's family troops traveled to other places, their huge investment in and lavish consumption of the theatrical performances was conspicuous to spectators elsewhere, which helped spread the family name widely. Shanxi merchant had a good understanding of the positive image and influence in local community that they would obtain via lavishly sponsoring and consuming theatrical performances. The drama style that Shanxi merchants were particularly enthusiastic about is bangzi, or clapper opera. Some of you might not be very familiar with this drama style. It was probably one of the most important drama style in northern China. Two characteristics that distinguished all form of bangzi from other drama styles are the adoption of beat-based form for their musical structure and the use of bangzi clapper to mark the accented beat and tap out the rhythm. The earliest mature form of bangzi is qingqiang, which was and still quite popular in Shanxi province. There are 4 major subforms of bangzi in Shanxi province, and the development of all these 4 forms was to a certain degree attributed to Shanxi merchant support. Shanxi merchants brought bonzi into towns and cities where they sojourned in, facilitating the widespread of bonzi in northern China. Because Shanxi bonzi had a close connection with the social elites in Beijing, and they entertained them with theatrical performances, including bonzi performances. Bonzi was able to penetrate into the elite class in the second half of the 19th century and compete with Peking opera. However, bonzi did not have a full support of the literary elites as Peking opera and Kunqu did. Well-educated but poor literati whose social status was threatened by the upward mobility of wealthy merchants emphasized their own passion for the refined Kunqu and depicted bonzi and wealthy merchants as vulgar in their jottings in order to justify their own social status. But their disdain for bonzi did not bother Shanxi merchants at all. The drama style that Shanxi merchants selected to entertain social elites depended on the fashion at their times. But when it comes to their own recreational occasions, they preferred bonzi. All the documented family troupes established by Shanxi bankers were bonzi troupes. Shanxi merchants assembled at smaller theater gardens in Beijing, where no seats were provided for high-status literati. Shanxi merchants did not publicly express their interest in Kunqu, and they were not actively involved in script writing and acting to show off their sophistication as some literati did. So Shanxi merchants' theater sponsorship and consumption shows us that Shanxi merchants were merchants' business were business. Although Shanxi merchants indeed ingratiated themselves with officials and longed for titles and official posts, the great majority of them and their descendants did not pursue a political career as literati did. Displaying financial power via conspicuous consumption of theatrical performance was certainly instrumental for Shanxi merchants to maintain and showcase their prestige. However, they did not necessarily follow the pattern of literati in doing so. Wealthy Shanxi merchants not only developed their own lifestyle and expensive hobbies and enjoyed entertainments in their own ways, but also lead the educated elites into their recreational world. The relationship between Shanxi merchants and performance, and the relationship between between merchants and literati, were the outcome of commercialization and the reflection of the impact of commerce on social stratification in the later half of the Qing dynasty. Towards the dusk of the imperial era, the once popular idea merchants as D-class and scholars as exalted came to be held by the literati alone, and was a futile defense that merchants did not care much about. So these are my references, and that's all for my talk. Thank you for your listening.